Sup guys, dinofries here, and today I want to talk about my interview with Hanbiel Oh, the head of Western development at Nexon. You guys probably know him as Inkwell. I spoke with him this past weekend on Saturday, October 25th at MapleCon 2025, where they celebrated the 20th anniversary of MapleStory. At the event, I not only got the opportunity to check out the demo of MapleStory Classic World, but talk with Inkwell about MapleStory Classic World. If you want to check out the full interview, head on over to the website MMO Bomb. You can check out the link for that in the description below. All right, let's get into it. So before the interview started, I actually showed him my MapleStory tattoo, the Junior Reaper with the CC please sign. He laughed, he was surprised, and he said he loved it, which was pretty cool. I started off the interview asking him how he got into MapleStory in the first place. Inkwell said he started playing MapleStory around 2003, 2004 during the open beta. He said he's a gamer, so he was really into MapleStory. In fact, he was the top ranked warrior in the Zenith server in Korean MapleStory. He said he was around rank 60. I asked him if warrior was his favorite class, and he basically just said that he plays warrior when it comes to playing video games in general. Like, that's always the class, the archetype he chooses. Inkwell also said he played a fighter and used a two-handed sword, and this was before Third Job was out at this point, when he was, you know, the top ranked warrior, one of them. And then I asked him, when did development on Classic World start and what inspired him and his team to pursue it. Inkwell said he came up with the idea 10 years ago around the Big Bang update. He brought it up to Nexon, but they weren't interested at the time. Then some years passed, and around 4 years ago is when he brought the idea up again, and this time around they were interested. But development itself, like actual development, didn't begin until he said like 2 to 3 years ago. Then I asked him what his design philosophy was when it comes to Classic World. If he's like, how modern are things going to get? How authentic is it going to be to the original MapleStory? Like how they're going to balance that? Inkwell said, if you want to play MapleStory Classic World right now, you already can. He brought up private servers and Artail on MapleStory Worlds, which is Nexon's own platform. So he was like, well, there's really no need for MapleStory Classic World because you can already do that. You can already play, you know, old school MapleStory. The reason he wanted to make, you know, an official MapleStory Classic World was because he said that GMS is too modernized and the learning curve for new players is way too large. Inkwell thought, like, okay, like how can I reduce all that content and make a game that's more simple and more accessible to players? At the same time, he was like, well, there are already versions of MapleStory Classic World that exist out there. So how can we make a Classic World that has the quality of life changes that modern MapleStory has and gets rid of the inconveniences that players experienced back then? And on top of that, you know, keeping it like still classic. He also brought up the idea of a Big Bang 2, but he figured that most players wouldn't like that. Also in the room with us was a Nexon employee who was kind of overseeing the interview, and she said that Inkwell is paying attention and has been paying attention, you know, to the massive amount of calls for, you know, an official old school MapleStory on the internet and across the world, and like he's been paying attention, and so like he understands that, like, especially, you know, MapleStory fans in the West wanted this, and you know, she said he took that to heart. So then I brought up that the audience that MapleStory captures today, like, we're all grown-ass adults. I'm 30. I believe that most players are like in their 30s, 40s. Whereas back then, you know, when we were playing it, we were like kids. We were just teenagers. So I asked him how he felt about that, you know, the main audience, like, we're all grown up. Inkwell specifically said that we're not reviving old school MapleStory, that it's more of a modernized classic MapleStory. He said that it doesn't just apply to teenagers like it, you know, like it might have back then, but that it's accessible to all ages, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. And Inkwell said that he feels like MapleStory is unique because of the presentation of it, the pixel art. So he feels like MapleStory applies to all ages, all gamers, no matter, young or old. Next, I asked him about his plans for monetization with Classic World. So Inkwell was like, well, yeah, there will be monetization. Obviously, I mean, we knew that. But he said that the monetization is going to be similar to how it was back then, during the pre-Big Bang era. Inkwell said that a lot of people misunderstand that their purpose, that like MapleStory is not for players to spend money, but to genuinely enjoy the game and have fun. He said like that's his perspective. That's how he feels about the game. He specifically brought up HP Washin actually and said, no, like I don't want HP Washin to be in Classic World. He said it's unfair. And he actually said that HP Washin was more of a bug back in the day than a feature. Inkwell also brought up cubes, and he was like, well, people are probably wondering, are there going to be cubes in the game? And he said like at least like right now he's thinking no, like I have no plans for cubes to be in Classic World. Then I asked him straight up, I'm like, do you know what pay to win is? And Inkwell was like, well, why don't you explain to me your definition of pay to win? I responded with examples, and those were cubes, gachapon, 2x coupons, HP Washin. Inkwell brought up PSSB in GMS, which is like premium style surprise boxes, I believe. So in modern MapleStory, you can buy like essentially like loot boxes, where you get like a random piece of like a cosmetic item, and it's random, but it's also permanent, like it doesn't expire. And you could like see like what you could possibly get. Like there's themes, and they like rotate out like what you can get from the boxes, the PSSBs. So he compared PSSB to gachapon, and he asked me, well, is PSSB pay to win? And I said no, obviously, because PSSB is cosmetics only. And he actually said, too, that like, PSSB is like gachapon, but also not really. So then he went on to say that, well, is gachapon pay to win or not? Like, I'm not sure, and that it depends on the details, like the items themselves that you can acquire through gachapon. Now, this part was unclear to me, but from my interpretation, I think he was trying to say that, well, it depends on like the item itself that you can obtain from gachapon only, which leads me to believe that he understands that some items that were only obtainable again through gachapon, like the Stormcaster gloves, the face stompers, the pink adventurer cape. So I think what he's trying to say is that that's still being discussed. And he said like, I can't say whether or not I'm gonna do gachapon, like that he's not sure, but that he said like I'm going to like we want to avoid pay to win. Like of course we don't want there to be pay to win in Classic World, and that's why he wanted to know what my definition of pay to win was. So moving forward, I told him that I played the demo of Classic World already before we even had the interview, and that I got to experience the new area in Classic World, Forgotten Hollow. And so I asked him, I was like, okay, so like that confirms it, like there's going to be new content in Classic World. And so I asked him, well, would you ever go past the Big Bang? Like, would you ever include content that happened that was added to the game after the Big Bang update? Because I understand, like your whole vision is pre-Big Bang. Like he specifically said, Classic World is pre-Big Bang. And he answered, he was basically like, so then he was just like, I can't say yes or no, that I'm still discussing it with my team. But he's like, well, I'm the one making the decision, and so they'll probably, just follow my lead. And the way he said it was that Classic World is a parallel MapleStory. So he put his hands out and he was like, okay, well, like this is Classic World, and like this is modern MapleStory, and like in the middle is the Big Bang update. And he was like, he posed the question, and he was like, well, what if there was no Big Bang? And then he brought up the NPC Manji, and he said that, we never got to tell Manji's story. And he asked me if I remembered the heroes Gladius. And then he also, pondered like, well, what happened to Chief Stan in Hennessy's? Meaning like there are still stories of old school MapleStory that he and his team didn't get to tell. They didn't get to explore those stories. and he sees Classic World as an opportunity to tell new stories that, you know, revisit and expand upon like lore that was never like truly expanded upon. So I confirmed like, okay, so like new content that gets added will fit into the Classic World framework, you know, the slower, more accessible design of old school MapleStory as opposed to, you know, the more fast-paced modern MapleStory. And the way he answered this question was that he basically said that like he was like, oh, like, so should we release Ludibrium and Elnoth? And he's like, because like, well, a lot of players probably want, you know, Ludibrium and Elnoth. And he basically confirmed that like Elnoth and Ludibrium are already developed or like are in development or like pretty much done or almost done. Like they already have it ready to go. And so Inkwell was like, well, if players want Ludibrium and Elnoth, then yeah, we're gonna add Ludibrium and Elnoth, but that we're not going to follow the exact updates of GMS. Like it's not gonna follow the same timeline. It's not gonna be like, you know, like Orbis, Elnoth, Ludibrium, Third Job, like then like Leafree and like all like those areas that got added in accordance to the timeline, the MapleStory timeline, that the history that we know of, that they're not gonna follow things the same way. It's not gonna go the way we might think it will. It'll take a different path. And so I followed up and I was like, okay, so it's gonna be different. And he said, yeah, it's gonna be different, but like no guarantee. And this is when he told me that he said we're ready to release. He's like basically like, we're ready to release Classic World right now, but we're not gonna do that. And so on this topic of Classic World being different, he asked me if I saw the Spider-Man movie, and I was like, oh, you mean like Into the Spider-Verse? And he was like, yeah, Spider-Verse, it's similar to that. Just kind of like elaborating on the fact that Classic World will take a different path. It's not going to be, you know, just old school MapleStory exactly how we remember it. It's basically going to be like, again, a parallel MapleStory. And he was like, what if the Black Mage didn't die? Inkwell thinks that could be interesting and appealing to players. And he said like, that's why we're having play tests. We want to know what the fans think. We want to receive player feedback. And that's how we'll gauge what gets added to MapleStory Classic World. And at this point, we were running out of time. I only had a half an hour with him. So my last question was that, what, you know, do you have any plans to add new classes? And he said the possibility is open. And again, he was like, what do the players want? If they want a new class, then I could consider adding a new class. But if they don't, then I won't. I wish I had more time with him. I had more questions to ask, but I felt like I got the important ones like answered. So, you know, I was pretty satisfied with the interview, and it was super cool to meet Inkwell, man. Like I told my mom, I'm like, Mom, like I met the MapleStory guy, and she was like, oh, that was your favorite game back like when you were a kid. And you know, I think the interview went super well. It was cool to hear from Inkwell himself about MapleStory Classic World. He seems genuinely super passionate about this idea. He genuinely seems to like you know, want to make Classic World work and succeed, and that, you know, he values player feedback. And I think that's really all, you know, we as fans can ask for. Also, after the interview, I was like, oh, before you go, just so you know, I make MapleStory content on YouTube, and I showed him my channel, and he was like, oh, cool, wow, like that was really cool, just to show him that I, you know, my YouTube channel exists. And, you know, I think he appreciated that. It was so cool to meet Inkwell and interview him. Again, you can check out the full interview on the website MMO Bomb. Again, link in description below. There were some things that I didn't bring up. I just went over the highlights and, you know, my experience. And yeah, I mean, that's it. Thank you for watching. Please drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and, you know, leave a comment down below. Like, what do you think of the interview? You know, were there some things he said that you agree with or disagree with? I would love to hear what you guys think of this interview. So yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.